we go. All right. And I think, am I correct? Did you all get a notification that said I have started recording this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's what people were saying yesterday. So hi and welcome to everyone. We're looking at Flipgrid here. My name is Rick Bray. I work for Broomtauga Bosies, if we haven't met before. My contact information is on this slide deck. And as we go through today's deck, if you choose, you're welcome to take anything from this deck and use it again. I didn't write on there, but I am going to put the Creative Commons license for attribution, which basically just means if you use this or any materials from today, I would just ask that you give credit to where it goes. There's absolutely no charge associated with that, and I believe in sharing it. So with that, that's my name, that's my email. If you have any questions and you want to reach out, you can always reach me by email. If you're on Twitter, that's my handle down there, Mr. ChemGeek, is how you can get to me. So kind of starting out, I usually have some different ways that I do this. And what I'm thinking about is I set this up to be a meeting in Zoom as opposed to a webinar, because a webinar is just me talking. And that's not necessarily what I'm interested in having with this session. I'd really like to have you all interacting if you feel comfortable. We might have some questions, some different ideas. Certainly, if you have a question as we go through, stop me and let's address that one. So I'm going to kind of take this starting that we don't know anything about Flipgrid, and we'll just piece it together from there, because I know we could have some people who have set up grids with their students, and we'll talk about some different ways we can use it in our recently mandated distance learning environment, and we'll just look at what it is. So starting off, I just want to make the disclaimer. This is part of my responsibility as an ed tech person. If you are familiar with Education Law 2D around student data privacy, that was passed in January, and what we would, Flipgrid does fall into this when it comes to personally identifiable information. So we would highly recommend, before you go and use this with your students in your classroom, please check with your district to make sure that it meets their policies with regards to that. So as it says here, because I need to read my disclaimer, please keep in mind that Flipgrid, in this case, is a free platform. If parents wish, they can create individual accounts for their children. Teachers, please refer to the district's individual policies regarding the protection of students' personally identifiable information and the use of ed tech tools before creating student accounts. So again, just a friendly reminder to check in with your district regarding the use of Flipgrid. But what is Flipgrid? I am not going to play that video because I don't know if it's going to come through for you. But that is, you can see it's a 50-second clip that Flipgrid put together that you're more than welcome to watch later on. And it just kind of goes into what Flipgrid is. It is a really vague tool, in my opinion, and in a positive way, meaning it can do so many different things and it can be used in so many different ways. But in short, whoops, we didn't need to go there yet. What it is, because it's going to play again. What it is it's a place where students or any participant can post up a recording at its base level. It can be a video conference like you see of me talking right now. Think about it like a post where that video would show up. If students are uncomfortable with showing video, they can just put their thumb over their camera like I just did. And now you can hear me, but you don't have to worry about seeing me. Because I don't know if in the system, if you can actually turn off the webcam. Some of the other things we've seen teachers do with regards to that is they bring in props and the students talk through a prop. But the basic idea is they can record a response in this space. So as far as who it is, Flipgrid was acquired in 2019 by Microsoft, which was really, really cool because there was a free side and a paid side that was associated with Flipgrid. And when Microsoft bought it, they basically said, if you have a Microsoft license, you now have the paid version of Flipgrid for no additional charge. And if you are what's called in our region, because I think, as I looked through the names, I'm going to make the assumption that almost everyone, if not everyone here, is what's called a MITS district in our region. I think there's a few of you that may not be. But if you purchase your Microsoft license through Broomtauga Bosies in this case, you get Flipgrid access. So I can say for the districts I support, Windsor and Maine Enwell, you are 100% on that line. So I do want to make sure that we are aware of this. I have to give credit where credit's due on this one. This is the best guide to Flipgrid ever. These are two educators, Sean Fahey and Carly Mora. You can find them on Twitter. When you get this resource deck, what I'm going to do just to make sure you get it, this is a PDF book, and I'm going to copy the link and throw it up into the, well, not throw it up because that would be disgusting. I'm going to put it in the chat right there. So that is the educator's guide, and it just has tons and tons of information. They put this together for free. This is the this is version 3 for them. So all this stuff here is, I believe it's hyperlinked. So when you don't remember how to create a grid, oh, it's not hyperlinked in the PDF, bummer. But I can skip down and it's just gobs and gobs of information. So when we get out of tonight and you don't remember exactly how to do something, I would recommend checking out that book for sure. And if you are on Twitter, look up Sean and Carly. They are really good sources of information. Their names are at the bottom of the book and you can search them out on Twitter. So before we dive in, I'm not going to give you a test on this throughout today, but just so you know, these are some common terms that are thrown around in Flipgrid. There are grids, like it says here. That is a space where you can post topics, and the topics are actually the place where the conversation happens. So it's kind of, I guess, if you're familiar with different learning management systems, maybe Schoology or Google Classroom, the grid is your classroom space. And then you can have discussions inside that classroom. That's what the topics are. So the grid is like your class. The topics are the actual discussion. You can have multiple topics within a grid. You can have multiple grids. So I'm thinking you might have one grid, for example, if you teach maybe a secondary subject and you have multiple class periods. I realize it might be different now, but you might have different grids for each class period, right? If you wanted to keep those bodies separate in that regard. Just a thought. A flip code, again, if you're familiar with learning management systems, that's how we can get to a grid. It's a series of numbers that lets us in, or letters. Response is just a recorded post to a topic. And you can activate, you'll see replies. So just like you think about with a normal discussion, if you elect to, I can't remember what the default setting is, we'll see in a second, you can have students reply to each other's posts with video responses, which can be pretty cool. And then the last thing I wanted to put up there was the idea of what they call frozen. And a frozen grid, a frozen topic, is one where you can still see the responses, you just can't add to them. So how are we doing so far? I just want to check in. Anything coming up so far that we're not sure of, or any questions?
All good.
Awesome.
The
Excellent.
frozen,
Again,
the frozen part of the, is that like if you gave a time limit or a due date, freeze it and grade it and they can't add anything else?
Yeah, that's one thing. Another case that I've seen it used was, let me see if I remember this right. So a teacher was having the discussion and they wanted to kind of move on to the next discussion, but keep the students, keep their ability to see what was said as a reference point, as a review thing, but they didn't want to have to, I'm going to use the word moderate that space. They didn't want to have to worry about students posting additional things. So in that case, you can freeze it, so you can still see everything that was there without having to worry about additional stuff showing up. Sound good?
Good.
Cool. Yes. So Nick just asked the question in the chat, can we create something from scratch? That's a really good question. That might be where I go next, is I'm going to make an account and you can all follow through this process with me. And I'm using an account that has never been linked to Flipgrid, so hopefully we're going to see similar things. Now, before we dive into that, I just wanted to show there's different types of grids. And when we get into the creation, I'll spend a little bit more time with this, but when you get the slide deck, or if you already have it, the title here, types of grids, goes out to a blog post. It links out to a blog post from Flipgrid that gets into it with a little bit more information. But the basic gist of it is the school email type of grid. In order for a student to access that, they're going to have to log in with their email account that's associated with your school. They changed it recently, so I actually have to update this. So here's a little, ready, watch what we're going to do. We're going to update this on the fly. Oh, exit, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to take this part and strike through, because that's actually not true anymore. Let's see, there, and then we'll go back to present. And the reason I did that is PLC and Publix used to be that anyone could post to that. So as far as our students getting in and posting on it, that had the least amount of hoops to jump through. You could just go to the grid and post. They have since changed their setup, and now PLC and Public still requires you to log in with a Google account. It doesn't necessarily have to match your school like the top one does, but it has to be an actual account in Flipgrid to post. The student ID, I say in here, this is a little helpful for younger students, because you can just set ID numbers. And that's how, when the students try to access the grid, it's going to say, what's your ID number? And the number they put in corresponds to a name that you listed. And that's how they know who's who. If you don't necessarily, and I know this may be confusing right now, so I'll show you when we get into it. If you don't necessarily care who's responding, you just want them to respond, you can all have them use the number 1. And then they're all the same person, but they can just get in by saying my number is 1. Right? So let's dive in a little bit and see what this looks like. And we'll come back to why I like it so much in a bit. I gotta move my grid here. So if I head over to here, flipgrid.com, and I'm going to, for my sake, making it a little bit easier to see my screen, I've shrunk all of you so that I can't see anymore. So if something comes up, if you have a question, if you could just unmute and holler at me, because I can't see you waving anymore. But I'm going to go to, if I search out flipgrid.com, it takes me to this website. And if this is your first time signing in, you can click on the educator sign up on the side. And I just want to make sure. Okay. Got it. I'm going to come back to that question that just showed up in the chat in a second. So if I say educator sign up, it's saying here, students do not need accounts. That's kind of correct. But I would suggest you can sign up with your Google account. And if this is not one of my school accounts, if you have a school Google account, like Maine Enwell's Google is Google, Windsor's Google. I'm not sure, Connie, about JC. I feel like you all have Google accounts. Is that correct?
We do. Yes.
Okay. So you can say sign in with Google and just check your school name, and it's going to make my space. And I'm going to take kind of some pauses throughout this whole process in case you're all following along, so that way you can have some time to do this as well. So I'm just going to fill in the information that I want. In this case, it wants my name, my country is going to be the United States, the grade of my learner. I'm going to go with high school, even though that's not totally accurate. And then just because I'm weird, I don't put my actual birth date in things. There's an upside and downside to that. So we'll just do that one. And then I'm going to say, let's go. And it takes me here. And we can just X out of this when you get here, and I'll kind of walk you through. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you back up, and I'm going to mute myself. Well, I'm just going to be quiet. But let's take a second if you want to get here, and if you have any questions, we can certainly answer them. But feel free. Let's take maybe, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and we'll see how that works for time. And if you have any questions about it, maybe if you're an advanced user and you had some different things, feel free to fire those out. I can tell you, where'd the chat go? I lost it because I'm moving things around. So a question did come in. I have a student that has difficulty keeping things appropriate for class. Can that student be frozen? That is a really good question. We'll get into, I don't necessarily know if you can do that directly, but I do know you can moderate these grids. And what that means is you as the teacher have to approve a post before it's publicly visible by the students. So that may be an option that you want to look at. And once we start setting up our spaces, I'll show you where that is. If I don't, yell at me. So I'm thinking about one more minute, and then we'll keep going just to make sure that we're all at this space, which I can see some of us are typing in that we're getting there. That's awesome. Yeah, good question, Chuck. The PDF, is that, I'm assuming that's the educator's guide. That is, so that right now is housed in my Google Drive, but you are welcome to share that link out. That is a publicly available document from Seth and Carly. So yes, you are more than welcome to share that out. Thanks for asking. Okay, so I'm gonna keep rocking here, and all right, let's minimize you and close that. So this is where I can start out by starting my grid. And again, we said the grid was kind of your classroom space. So I can either add a new grid here, or it gives me this graphic, which is here right now, just because I don't have one. So either one of these buttons will get me the same thing. I'm just gonna check this one over here, because that's the one that's always there. So I'm gonna add a new grid. We have to notice there's required pieces of information, right? I'm just gonna call this sample class, but this is where you would title the grid. And again, the grid is kind of the space where all the conversations happen. So it might be period 3 ELA, it might be ELA 10. I don't know why I'm stuck on ELA right now. It might be chemistry, there we go. It might be US history, whatever that case is. Here, as far as your selected grid type, my suggestion, and we can break into some conversations here if you want. My suggestion is either the top one or the middle one, the school email. And I'm thinking that's going to be useful if your students are, maybe if you're in a secondary environment where your students are pretty proficient with logging in, or they're already using Chromebooks that they're logged into with their account. It'll just walk right through with the school email, no problem. If you have younger learners, or in the case now, if they're maybe on shared devices, which I understand we're home, so that might not be the case. The student ID list is here. And let me see, if I go forward with that, I'll show you. If I pick a student ID, what I can do here is I can say, student number 1, their student ID is 1. And then I would say, add them. It doesn't let me add them. Let's try something different. Student sample ID. Oh, I think it's because it has to be 2 digits. There we go. It's got to be a 2-digit ID number. So I might do student sample number 2, and they would be number 2. So I could put in my students into this list, or I could just all have them use the identifier number 1, because I'm going to see who they are. So this is really, really helpful, like I say, for the younger learners. Or if you're in a secondary environment, school email would work as well. So I'm going to take a pause here and see if there's any questions. I do see that one came in through the chat, and it says, can we be co-owners of a grid with teachers that we work with? That is a great question. I think the answer is yes. I'm going to have to look and see. I think we set that up in a step down the road, but I definitely know you can have what are called, they call them co-pilots here. So you definitely can do this. And then another question came up. I don't understand. Okay. Got it. So the question is coming up between, I think, what is Classroom versus what is Google stuff and what is Flipgrid. So they're all sort of different tools. Classroom is an example of what's called a learning management system, which the purpose of that is when we use all these different tools, Google Classroom or Schoology, or there's lots of other different products out there, they can act as a single place where we post the access to those tools. So instead of our students having to say, go to, got it, okay. Instead of having them go to all these different places to find it, they can go within there. So why would we use Flipgrid? Flipgrid is an incredibly easy tool for recording a response and sharing it with my students. It's easy to do video. You can import, we'll see when as a post, you can import lessons from other places. So kind of one of the things that we've heard when people make videos, for example, or their students make videos and the teachers say, well, how do I get this video to share with all my students easily? Because we have different needs in different places. Flipgrid is a way to do that. I can post that video up on Flipgrid. It's also a very, very easy place to share information. Cool. We'll see later, you can share an entire topic or you can share a single student response by link or by a QR code. And in doing so, I've seen teachers do like the weekly newsletter is done through Flipgrid, or the students talk about what they learned in class. And we'll see some different examples of how we can use it here. And you can really get cool when we get into using those Flipgrid responses can be viewed in what's, if you're familiar with augmented reality. So I thank you for going through that one. I think you keep me up, or not keeping me up, but keeping me updated. You are keeping me up. I've been up for a while. So the co-pilots, we'll get into that. That basically, it's a co-moderator. It means that multiple people can manage the space as we go through. So what I'm gonna do for this one, sorry, I just rambled forever and said I was gonna let you ask other questions. Any other questions coming up that you wanna fire out there, either on the chat or through the microphones? Okay.
Just in the chat, the one that I had put in there with the co-pilots and what's the benefit of that.
Sure.
And if you're going to answer it later, that's fine too. I'll just wait.
So I would say the benefit of a co-pilot is that you have multiple people managing the place. So I think about, I had some teachers collaborating through Flipgrid with teachers in Texas. And so I was one of the pilots of the space. The Texas people were the in-class teachers, both in Texas and here. We're doing that. So that way we can all just keep an eye on what's happening. And if things are moderated, it's more than one person checking that moderation piece to make sure we can get things moving fluidly. So it's kind of just another set of eyes. It's not all reliant on one person. Okay. Oh, that's a really great idea. Thank you. I'm going to share that publicly. It was also brought up, it might be really beneficial to have your special education teachers in as co-pilots. Yeah, that's a really good call. Thank you for bringing that up. So let's keep driving here with, we're going to go with a school email. No, I'm not a school email. We'll do this one. So once it's all set to go, I can, if I want, add a password. I'm not going to do that for mine. And we are ready to go, just like that. So again, I've made my grid at this point. And if I say go to my grid, here is where I can have all my conversations down here, these topics. Now, I think if I go to actions, here we go. There's your question. There's the answer. Adding a co-pilot right here. This is going to give another user access to the grid, which would mean they also, I believe, have access to every individual topic within that grid, as opposed to if I just, nope, can't do it on a topic. Cool. So that's what we want to do. It's been a little while since I looked at this, but right there, I can add co-pilots, and it's just by entering in their email, and that's how I can share it out with another person to help moderate this space. They always start with this example of say hello on Flipgrid. It's just kind of the default one that they put in. You can add new topics. We can also change the look of this, but I want to show you how to make those new topics right here. And this is where that individual conversation is going to be had. For whatever reason, I'm stuck on ELA tonight. I think it's because I honestly, I want to talk to my mom, who is an English teacher for years. So it's like ringing in my head. But I could have like a topic on a particular chapter or a particular book. So I'm just going to put topic title here. And I might ask my question in this space. Describe the, and Bridget's going to yell at me if I get this wrong, but that's okay. No, we won't do character arc. We'll do character development. Is that more appropriate?
Right.
Throughout chapter 1, right? With recording time, these are the options that you're given. A student, or a participant, I should say, can always record less than that, but that's the maximum that they're allowed. They'll see a little bar that shows it's filling up. So most times, to be very honest with y'all, I pick 5 minutes because they'll go less. Some teachers have shared with me like, no, I got kids that if they see they can talk for 5 minutes, they're talking for 5 minutes. So we're going to keep it at 1.5 or 2. Whatever works for you is completely fine. I'll do 2 for this one. Here is where I can upload a lot of different things into this space to make the topic more interactive, more vibrant, whatever you want to call it. I can record a video. That might be a video of you explaining the directions in person. That's also, you can upload a video if you already have one made. Maybe there's a YouTube video that you want to have them watch the video and then respond to it within the space. Or a picture if you want to give them a picture to respond to. It's all different sorts of things that you can do. Being 100% honest, I haven't played with a lot of these interactions down here. So I would assume they behave the same way. I just don't know. I haven't played with them. So I'm gonna pause for a second. And if anyone has any experience with that, please feel free to chime in. Or if you have a question at this point, now's a good time. Otherwise, I think we're doing okay, is the feeling I'm getting. No one's yelling at me to stop. So I think we're going okay. Again, feel free to holler if I'm moving too fast. There are more options here, and I'm gonna have to look and see what they are. A topic tip, right? And I can see it says, help your students best answer the topic, maybe like a little descriptive text. I can attach a file from a variety of places. So this is, for me, this is starting to behave kind of learning management style-esque, where I can start bringing in multiple things together. It's certainly up to you. But this is the part that I really wanted to get into here, right? This topic status. Here, for the participant who earlier mentioned about the student that may have a hard time controlling themselves, if I check this on, right, it turns green just by clicking it. So if I turn that on, now when the students finish posting the video, and I'll show you the teacher side versus the student side, you have to, as the teacher, as the pilot of the grid or co-pilot, go in and say, I approve this to be seen, I approve this to be seen. There's some pluses and minuses there, but it's certainly, you all know your students way better than I ever could. So we'll let you decide where you want to go. Just so that you know, the biggest difference I see when it is like this, when it is not moderated, the students finish posting their video and they can immediately see it posted on the grid. They can see their space that was recorded. When it's moderated, it doesn't show until you approve. So we've had some students record and record and record because they didn't think it posted. They didn't realize it had to wait for approval. So even when we're really, really clear with the instructions, sometimes that gets missed. So just something to know with the moderation side of it. Here's that status. Active means you can post to it. Frozen means it's visible, but not there's no ability to add to that topic. And then hidden, just like it sounds, only the pilots or co-pilots can see it. It's just like we see with Classroom and Schoology, where we unpublish things. So I'll have it be active. This is where you can elect to do student-to-student replies. So by default, there's our answer. It's set to be on. If I turn that off, students can't reply to each other's posts. I can see advantages and disadvantages for both ways of this. I think it totally depends on what you're doing. If we want to have a conversation back and forth, the replies can be really cool. If we just want to post what we're thinking and then we're going to have a discussion on it later, I'm thinking like our more traditional style classroom, we may not want to have the replies on. Totally up to you. You can set dates here to have it be active and then to have it freeze, should you choose. And then down here, there's lots of different ideas. Selfies versus videos. Selfie is you record through the platform. I believe video is going to be that it takes a picture at the end and posts it for them. I would leave it as both. I think both are good. Do you want them to be able to put a title on the video? Do you want them to see how many views it has? Sticky notes. I would 100% leave this on. We'll see. I'm going to make a post in a second. The sticky notes provides literal sticky notes on the page while the student's recording so they can pre-write their script. It makes it really nice. Again, can they put attachments in? And by default, there is no like on Flipgrid. You have to turn that on. And then we're stuck with basic feedback because the ideas, the licenses that we have right now. So we get our basic feedback. And then I say create, and I'm all set to go. This is how I can share it out with my students, is this link right here, right? I can copy it. If it works, you can send out a QR code to your students. If you have a learning management system, you can, for example, Classroom, or if you're using Teams, you can send it there. I don't know how those work. In terms of, I would assume you push the button for Classroom and it asks what class you want it to show up in. As far as Schoology users, I can just copy this and paste that as a link into my Schoology course. So before I make a post on this, let me take a second and check in with y'all and see how we're doing, if there's any questions. And let me pull up the chat in case anything, I haven't gotten any notifications. So I think we're doing okay. And I'm gonna take a sip of my black cherry and coffee seltzer, which sounds disgusting, but it's actually really good. Okay. Oh, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. All right, so let's keep rolling. I want to take one step, and if you need to see this a couple times, just holler at me because this took me a little while. Notice here it says your topic is ready, and it gives a link. That is the link to this single discussion. Earlier in the process, we had, oh, I have windows everywhere that makes it hard to see things. We had a grid, and that grid had a link, right? These are two completely different things. If I share this link with a user, they will see all of the topics inside of that grid, right? If instead I go into the grid and I share this topic with them, they will only see that topic. So there's a difference between sharing topics and grids. And at any time, I can go see what it looks like by hitting the view button. So let's go check it out. Here I am. And I think you all can see this giant green plus. That is how you know you're in the student side, because oftentimes we get here and teachers are like, I don't get it. How do I post? What am I doing? This is the teacher side of it where you're managing it. I can see there's 0 responses. When I click on this link, see how it says view as a student, right? Or when I see that plus sign, I know I'm in the right space. So I can click the plus to add, and this is where it might get a little funky because I have like cameras fighting for each other right now. But because of the grid I selected, it has to have a Google account associated with it, not connected to my school. Let's see, hey, cool, it does. So this is where I can record, right? And I have lots of options that I want to show you all right now. First off, I'm not gonna do it because I'm afraid it's gonna goof things up, but if I click this button, it will start recording my post using that web camera and my microphone that's actually in my ears right now. I can pause that, which is really, really beneficial. You know what, heck, let's try it. I think we're still going okay. So you can see it's, and I can pause my recording and it says my internet's unstable. It doesn't like that I'm doing that. And I can pick that recording back up. That is really helpful if we have students, if they need to pause to regather their thoughts, they can pause the recording and keep going. They can also, right here, they can trash the video and start over, or they can move to the next part. Right over here, these are the notes that I talked about. So I can click on a note and write my script. I spelled that wrong. And I can have multiple, right? They layer on. So this is note 2. This is note 3. They layer on in the order that you wrote them or that you clicked on them. So I could theoretically stack these on top because I don't know, you can't make it bigger. I can't grow it. So I can read this script and I can keep going, and it kind of looks like I'm looking at the camera, and then I get rid of that script and I keep recording and I get rid of this one. So I can work through it. The other option, right, is students could just take their piece of paper, I know you can't see what I'm doing, and put it up on their screen and read off their screen. But if they had a digital work, that's one way to go. If I need to see the questions again, I can show the topic. Let's see what's going on. I got windows overlapping windows. Oh yeah, that's the sticky note is a super cool feature. Big fan of that one. Some other things that came up this summer that, boy, if you like sticky note, you're gonna love this. Filters, that's not the one I was thinking of, but you can add filters to do different things. You can add text. So this is where Flipgrid started converting into sort of Snapchat, where you can put text up. So students could use this as a Snapchat emulator if they wanted, and it makes it a little bit more authentic to what they're doing. So it makes it feel a little more comfortable. They can add stickers, which I can turn all this off, I think. But here, this is the one I really want to showcase, this board. When I click this board, I get the ability to do a whiteboard or a blackboard, which means it's going to replace my camera with a board that I can write on, right? Or I could do a blackboard that I could write on. So let me see if I can do this justice here. What I saw someone do, that's not what I meant to do. I got windows everywhere. It's hard to see what I'm doing. Cancel. Clear boards. And I want to clear the writing. Uh-oh. That's okay, it's there. So what I saw someone do is we talked about pausing the recording. They started their recording, and this was a math problem. They said, you know, we're gonna do this because this is driving me nuts. Confirm. I'm gonna add a new one. They said, so Tommy has 3 apples and Susie has 4 apples. How many apples do they have together? And they paused the recording. And then they brought up their whiteboard. Yeah, I see a couple nodding heads. You get where this is going. So if Tommy, and this is way easier with the touch screen, had, I forget what I said, 3 apples, right? You can see where this is kind of going. They set up the problem. They paused. They brought it back to their face. And there's got to be something I'm missing here to clear this, but they kept going and walking through the math in their post. And it was really cool to see the math unfold as they went through it, which was a really neat process. I got to get rid of some of these windows to keep activating here. So the next step is you can watch your video. Oh, is it? It's covered up. Thank you so much. Oh, I wish y'all could see my screen. I have so many windows over windows for managing the webinar, but Clear was right there. Thank you so much for throwing that out there, Chuck. I appreciate it. So once I'm done, I say next, and it's going to play my video back to me, which is great. And this is my favorite part of this platform and has been my favorite part since the beginning. One of my colleagues always used to say content before pretty, and that's what this is. I got my whole answer in, and now I get to take my picture. This is the selfie part that is going to be the cover shot of my video, and it's where I get to goof around a bit. But all of the meat, all of the content is already done, so we don't get caught up in that stuff. So I'm just going to take a little selfie, and I can put stickers on it if I want. All sorts of different things. Kids can have fun with it. There's all sorts of goofy stuff, and then I post it. And this is the part where we're saying, Submit video. Yay! It's done. I hit complete, and there it is. Right? So that's, if it was a moderated post, you wouldn't see this here. And that's where I was saying the advantage and disadvantage. Moderation, certainly you can keep things in check. But when it's not moderated, or when it is moderated, you don't see the result. You may want to post again. So let me hold here for a second and see, what are y'all thinking about this so far? What sort of ideas do you have for using this, or questions, concerns do you have about it? Feel free, if you want, to unmute yourself if you have any ideas of maybe how you might try to use this with your students, or maybe that's the part you're waiting for. Excuse me, or if there's any questions that you have around it.
I think like in ELA, it would definitely be a nice way to do it, as like possibly having your students talk through like a claim and like supporting it with text evidence. So it's not just like writing, but they're actually doing the speaking part. Have you seen that used in ELA that way? I've never used Flipgrid.
There we go. I had to unmute myself. Great question. We can definitely do that. You know, one thing, it might be a little tricky. My book's upstairs. I'll just grab this magazine. Is they might actually somehow be able to put the text up, right? But it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing. But I'm thinking of putting a picture of the text and having them mark where they got the information from. Or like you're saying, they could have a conversation, because they get up to 5 minutes of, well, this is what I think. And on page 73 right here, blah, 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 and they read what it is. And also at the top of page 76, here's another thought. That might be a way to do their claimant evidence, but 100% that can be useful here.
Okay, thanks.
We've also seen, just on that idea, you might give the students, thinking about the ELA side, maybe in the text prompt, you give them a question and ask them to, what do you think the answer is and why do you think it, right? Still your claimant evidence. I think the answer is choice A, and we could even get into, because I saw the evidence here in the passage and I know it's not B, C, and D because of da, 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 da.
Okay, yeah, that's a great plan for it. Thanks.
Okay, I just saw that. Let's try and stop some of the craziness that I have going on and see if that can help. I hope that's a little bit better with the video quality. Thanks for the heads up. I want to clarify. So we got a lot of stuff coming in here. This is great. Other students see the cover photo for their video. Yes, that's correct. Other students will see that cover photo. So we do want to have conversations around digital citizenship. But I also think that, because right now we can't necessarily have those digital citizenship conversations as easily. Maybe we set the permission level on the grid to videos only, no selfie. So it's just the video gets posted. I don't know what the screenshot looks like on that one, though. I haven't tried it. Okay, good. Yep. It definitely is a great discussion board, 100%. I'm just going through chat things that are coming up. Can I post the link into a student's Google Classroom account? I am assuming that is referring to like taking the link to the topic and making it available in Classroom. And yes, you can. If you take that share code and put it there in the Classroom, the students would be able to click out and go there. I think there was also a button for Classroom. And it says here, Christian was saying that keeping face-to-face contact with kids on the lists, absolutely. This is an awesome way you could set up, if you are comfortable having, we've seen this, if you're comfortable having all the students in one single place talking to each other, you can do that. We've seen sometimes where it's more of a, the same way our relationships with students sometimes are built in confidence, you might want to build a grid, not a topic, right? Because everyone, when you're in a grid, you can see topics, but a grid for each student, right? And that way, that's a little bit more for us as the adult to manage, but it ensures that students aren't crossing into each other's conversations and getting access to information that we don't intend them to in terms of our confidence. So that's a good idea to have those conversations happening. Another one that's really cool that I kind of leaked this out last night in my other webinar, something for y'all to think about, not knowing what you teach, because I don't remember, but scavenger hunts, right? I'm thinking about, I've seen online, especially with littles, parents talking about they went out for a walk and we're looking for all the triangles we can find. We're looking for all the squares we can find. I certainly want to be careful right now with telling people to go out of their house and find things. That may not be something you want to say, but it could certainly be find something in your house that meets this. Or even, I'll tell you what I love with this. I wish I would be all about my daughter doing this. Take a video of you and your parents reading together, right? Those kind of activities that we talk about, just a real quick snip. Because the other thing, let me see if I can show you this. I want to switch my camera over to this one. So my phone, right? Let's turn it on and let's do this. So there's the Flipgrid app, which is kind of hard to see right now. But when you go into the Flipgrid app, which is free, and let's see if I can reset this exposure here, because that is just awful. But when you go into a topic, what is absolutely awesome about this is if I click on a topic and I'm going to enter my student ID was 02 for this one. Whoops, I entered the wrong one. I guess it wasn't 02. Maybe it was 23. There we go. We're not going to really worry about what the topic is, but I can go into the topic. There's my plus, which now means it brings up my camera, and I can make a post video right off my phone. So I know we went into let me come back here. We went into an economics class in high school. And again, you just can't do this right now, but I'm giving you the idea. What the teacher said in terms of economics, they were looking at different principles, and I can't remember what the concept was, but the basic idea is brand name stuff versus generic name items. So she said, this teacher said, go out and film an example of that concept. I want to say, I can't remember the term. I'm not even going to try, but we've seen some science teachers do this as well. Go out and show me science that's happening outside. What's an example of this relationship, different things happening? And because it's so easy to post from a phone, I think it's a great tool if they don't have a device available. So other thoughts that you have about Flipgrid, or questions for that matter? I know there were a couple things that I said, don't let me go without mentioning this. I think one was the co-pilot. I think we looked at moderation. I don't remember. If you can help me out, is there anything that I haven't addressed that I said I'd come back to? Because we got about 10 minutes left. There's just a few more things I'll show.
Rick, with student signups, like for like 7th grade classes, would you do the email or the student ID? Which one do you think would be better, especially if this is the first time I'm using it with my students? And kind of, I'm gonna share it with them through Schoology. What would your thoughts be on that?
So knowing that we have a wide audience, I'm just gonna start my answer with, because I know you, your classroom, and your environment. For your classes, Bridget, I think the school email would be the way to go. Okay. And my reasoning is, just so that we kind of have an idea in case anyone else is asking that, you have middle school students, so they are capable of logging in. When I think about kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, sometimes logging in is a little tricky. And in those instances, I might go with the student ID. The other reason for you, I would suggest that email route, that top option, is because with the Chromebooks that are in your district as well as some others, the students are logging into them as an individual. It's not like a generic login. So that information is going to carry over right into Flipgrid when they use Google in that regard. So that's definitely where I would go with this.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So Nick, I see the question coming up about music. That's a really good question. To be honest with you, the music teachers that we support, they use a different platform, like religiously, because it works really well for them, and that's Smart Music, I think is what it's called. But I was trying to build Flipgrid for a friend of mine that teaches in Pennsylvania to do lessons through, right? So the idea is the students, they have their piece of music, they play their piece of music to the recording, and that's how I get to hear how they're improving. And if I were to set up a grid for each student, if it just housed all their videos, we could see the progression of their playing if they played the same piece the whole time. By the way, that also reminds me, for all students, this is a really cool fluency tracker in terms of reading. If we have students read a passage, and again, setting up that individual space where we can look at their progress and listen to them as they go through their reading process. And so I hope Nick that took care of yours. Feel free to fire out in the chat if you have other ones or if it didn't hit that for you. And I see the question of, would this work as a virtual classroom? I definitely think this could be an opportunity for a virtual classroom because it's so quick and easy to post video responses. And there's certainly a time and a place for writing, and I think that's important. But to be able to quickly, I'm just going to pull this up because it's here, show you the thing I'm talking about and show you how it works, that has a lot of power as opposed to writing out my response as a discussion. So I think Flipgrid could absolutely enhance any virtual classroom's power in that regard. Oh, gotcha. So as far as all the students coming in at the same time, this is more, I see this as a little bit more of an asynchronous tool, meaning we're not all together like we are right now with Zoom. Instead, it's allowing people to come in as they can. For example, Connie earlier talked about, she's familiar with Google Meet, and we love things like Skype, Google Meet, all those places for Hangouts with an author or a kind of an expert. But the problem with that, and this could also work right now for us, the problem with that is in normal situations, in a secondary world, those people don't have the entire day to dedicate to come and talk to every single one of my classes. But if I make a Flipgrid, my students can ask questions on the Flipgrid and the expert can respond to those questions when they have that time available. So I definitely see that this is, yeah, this is a good check-in thing. This is a good asynchronous tool, meaning we're not all doing the same thing at the same time. So I'm going to, let me share my screen back, and I just want to show you a couple more things, especially because some of you are in this area. So like I mentioned earlier, some of the things that what drew me and what drew our team to Flipgrid was the idea of content before pretty, meaning that we get through everything before we get lost in the aesthetics, which is really easy to do and can kind of be a time suck in some regards. And publish. It gets stuff out there and it gets stuff visible for people to see. That sticky note was a really nice tool. And oh, I completely forgot to show. Let me see if I can get back and show you that one. You can import, or not import, that's not the word I want. Oops, uh-oh, sorry. There we go. When I make a post response, right over here on the 3 buttons, and I can't believe I forgot to show you this, I have the ability to add a clip from my computer. So this could be something from Google Drive if I had a recording set from there. So the students don't have to make a recording right here, right now. So that is a really, really awesome tool in that regard. Cool. So we showed that one. That's good. Just to give you an idea, again, we talked about that teacher side versus the student side. here is the teacher side with that green plus, where I can make submissions, or I can make, what do they call them, responses. And I can see all the different ones that are here. And you can see some of the sticker fun people had. On the teacher side, this is where I have the ability to, if it's moderated, approve or deny responses. And also with any of these options, any of these responses, this blue button has the ability to share, which is a way I can generate a QR code or a link to that individual response. So again, I know it's way out there right now with our environment, but let me there we go. What we've seen some teachers do, thinking at an elementary level, or this could be really cool for music, just because it came up there. What they do is for the All About Me page, especially I'm thinking kindergartners, they write their little about me that sometimes we have a hard time reading, but they use Flipgrid to record their message, and that response is given a QR code that's stuck on the physical piece of paper in the hallway, so that as parents or whomever comes by, they can scan it with their phone. It doesn't require an app to scan. It would just launch it as a web link and people can view it there. So a really awesome tool with that ability to share out on the teacher side. Whoops. Where'd it go? There it is. Nope, that's not it. I'm getting lost in my windows. There we go. So again, right here is where I can share responses if I wanted to. I can click copy that link, or they moved the QR code since I made this. We talked about that one. A couple different things when you get into this slide deck after today's presentation. This On Education podcast is one of the podcasts that I listen to regularly. And episode 53, this cues up right to it. They talked about really cool ways to do Flipgrid. And that particular, one of the episodes, they were talking to Claudio Zavala, who is a whiz when it comes to Flipgrid. He has just incredible ideas. If I remember correctly, he did his entire musical audition for like the school musical through Flipgrid. So definitely some really cool ways to use it. So with that, this is not appropriate for right now, but what the heck. Flipgrid is the way to go. So I'm going to say thank you all very much because we are running out of time. If you are a BT BOCES person, this webinar can count for CTLE hours, and I'm going to show you how you can claim those hours if that's important to you in about, a minute. So I want to thank you all for participating. This recording will be available. I'm going to post it out tomorrow to Twitter. And if you are with one of my districts, if you're with Windsor or Maine Inwell, I'll send out an email for that one. Just so that you know, again, my contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. I appreciate all the nice things that you're saying in the chat. I'm really, really glad this was beneficial. I would highly recommend, if you are not on Twitter, right now, that's one of the best ways that we can stay connected and get inspiration for ways that we can do these things. So on Wednesday, I am going to be offering one of these webinars on a very, very intro level of Twitter, how to get started, how to follow, how to have some connections with that one. And then we'll be looking at, I'll be doing another one on Thursday, the 26th. Please notice the Twitter one is in the evening. Again, these will all be recorded. The screencasting is during the day on Thursday. That's going to be looking at how to make videos for digital learning lessons in using Screencastify and Screencast-O-Matic as two tools. You get to pick which one works for you. So that is the end of this slide deck. Again, if you're looking for CTLE hours or credit through like My Learning Plan, if you normally do that one, since My Learning Plan isn't kicking, here's the information for that one. That link will take you out to I believe a Google form for today, and it's going to ask you for a workshop code, which is down at the bottom. It is UKOXAY is the session code for today. And I think when you fill that out, it's going to potentially ship you back a form that says you attended the webinar, and that is equivalent to 1 hour of professional learning. So I'm going to leave this up to make sure you all get that link. Again, this webinar is recorded. It will be available. I'm going to stop here. Again, thank you all so much for the wonderful things you said in the chat. I'm glad to hear this was beneficial. If you have any questions that didn't get answered, feel free to fire those out now, either on your mic on the chat, and I'll give it a couple minutes, and then if you want, I can stop recording and we can ask other questions if you have ones that you don't want recorded, just because variety of reasons. But again, thank you very much. So fire away if you got anything. Yep. Let me get the link. I'm going to get the direct link again to the slide deck and put it in the chat. I apologize. I have to go off this page for just a second. So we're going to share that out, copy that link, and head back over here for you now. There you go. So again, here is the link to the slide deck. Stick around for a second. Let's talk about that. That's a good one. Cool. Excellent. Okay, thank you all so much. I am going to stop recording this webinar. Again, I appreciate you all being here. Please feel free to reach out if you have questions. And now, stop recording.